Okay, let's dive into this. It's a story many of us feel we know about that bright, funny kid who just lit up our screens. But the real story? It's way darker than the spotlight ever let on. Yeah, you definitely remember this girl, right? Amanda Bynes. For a whole generation of kids, she was a comedic genius, the star of The Amanda Show. She was funny, she was relatable. I mean, she was basically the perfect teen star. But then there's this image, the one that totally dominated the headlines for years. The public breakdown, the really bizarre behavior, all the legal troubles. So you have to ask, how does one become the other? How does a star that beloved just completely spiral? What really happened to Amanda Bynes? All right, so let's go back to the beginning. Her story starts in California, back in 1986. And from a very, very young age, her father reportedly saw something in her. Not just a daughter, but a future star, a gold mine he felt he had to exploit. I mean, he started pushing her into acting when she was just 3 years old. And when you look at this timeline, it's pretty wild. This isn't a childhood. This is a strategic career path. At 3, auditions. At 7, her first contract. By 13, she's a household name. You know, her life wasn't about playdates and stuff. It was all about auditions and contracts. And her father was managing every single piece of it. Her work, her schedule, and, this is crucial, all of her money. And you know, behind that bubbly girl we all saw on screen, a totally different reality was taking shape. One filled with this immense pressure and real isolation. People who were there described her as a broken person, just haunted by this void inside. Her father's control was said to be absolute. It even extended to what she was allowed to eat, all to keep up that perfect image that was making them a fortune. So her success at Nickelodeon puts her right in the orbit of Dan Schneider, who was one of the most powerful and, as we now know, controversial producers in kids' TV. And this is where the story takes an even darker turn. And yeah, this picture, it really brings us to a crucial and deeply disturbing point. You know, a really ugly picture has emerged from countless reports and documentaries alleging that the environment Schneider created on his sets was, well, deeply inappropriate. We're talking multiple counts of him asking young actresses for massages, engaging in behavior that just completely crossed professional and personal lines. And the allegations, they are extensive. We're talking scripts for kids' shows filled with sexual innuendo, young actresses being pressured to wear revealing clothes, parties for teen actors where parents were specifically told not to come. But maybe the most shocking allegation to come out of all this, that Amanda's own parents saw some of this happening and chose to look the other way, putting the money and her career ahead of their own daughter's safety. So after she leaves Nickelodeon, Amanda tries to build her own path, right? She does teen films like She's the Man and Easy A. But that trauma, that control, it followed her. When she turned 18, she fought to get legal control over her own finances. You know, the money she'd been earning since she was a little kid. Her father's response to her trying to get some independence was, according to reports, just swift and brutal. When she tried to take control of her own life, her own money, he allegedly kicked her out of the family home. Just like that, a vulnerable teenager left to fend for herself in Hollywood. And this is when the public collapse really starts to pick up speed. Look at this. After seeing herself in the movie Easy A, she just abruptly quits acting. She's only 24, and she says she's disgusted by her own image. What came next was just this blur. DUIs, hit and runs, and these really shocking, bizarre social media posts. This wasn't just a star acting out. This was the outward explosion of years and years of trauma. Yeah, and her public statements, they just became more and more alarming. At one point, she's on Twitter accusing her father of abuse, and then days later, she takes it all back with this bizarre explanation about a microchip in her brain. So here's the really crucial part of this. Her parents only stepped in to file for a conservatorship after she had reportedly spent over $1 million. It made a lot of people wonder if their main concern was her fortune, not her failing mental health. And that's the thing, her story doesn't have a clean, happy ending. In the years since all of this, she's been in and out of conservatorships, in and out of mental health facilities, just struggling to find any kind of stability in a life that was never really her own to begin with.
And this really gets to the heart of the matter. Her story isn't just about one person's breakdown. It is a textbook example of a systemic failure. The very structures that are supposed to protect a child, her family, the industry, they didn't just break down. They actively chose to exploit her instead.
So we're left with this question, right? You look at this picture of her as this hopeful little girl in one of her first commercials, and you just have to wonder, was any of this ever her dream? Or was she just a casualty of somebody else's ambition, a product to be sold until she finally broke? It's a story without a happy ending, for sure. And it's a really sobering reminder of the true and often devastating price of childhood fame.